Sheikh Hamdan's wife found his secret phone and called the other woman. She found it, not because she was looking for it, not because she had spent weeks suspecting something and searching carefully through every corner of the life they were supposed to be building together. She found it the way the most significant discoveries always happen, by accident in an ordinary moment, when the life that was being carefully managed on all sides briefly stopped being managed and showed her something it had never intended for her to see. A second phone, small, kept separately from the official one, the kind of phone that exists for one purpose and one purpose only: to hold a life that cannot be on the main phone, a life with a different number, a different contact list, a different set of messages that were never supposed to cross into the visible world. She found it, she held it, and then she did something that nobody in the palace, in the history of everyone who had ever managed the complicated private life of Sheikh Hamdan, had anticipated she would do. She called the other woman, and the other woman answered. To understand the magnitude of what happened in that moment, you have to understand the world that Sheikh Hamdan's wife had been living inside. Sheikha bint Said Al Thani had entered this marriage with every reason to believe that what was being offered to her was real: a royal union, a future, a husband who was admired by millions of people around the world, and who, whatever his private complications, was capable of the kind of love that his poetry had always suggested he was capable of. She had believed, the way people believe at the beginning of things, that the distance she felt from him in the early months would close, that the connection she sensed he was capable of would eventually turn toward her, that patience and dignity and the genuine effort she was putting into the marriage would produce, over time, the thing she had started out hoping for. It had not produced it. The distance had not closed. The connection she had hoped for had not turned toward her. And the specific quality of his absence, present in body, elsewhere in everything that mattered, had grown from a source of quiet concern into a pattern she could feel without being able to name. Something was somewhere else. Someone was somewhere else. She had felt it for long enough that the feeling had become a constant rather than an occasional visitor. But feeling something and finding the evidence of it are two different experiences. And the phone in her hand was evidence, clear, undeniable, specific enough to take the shapeless feeling she had been living with and give it a name and a number and a history that went back further than she had probably allowed herself to imagine. She looked at the messages. Not all of them. She would not have needed all of them. The first few would have been enough. Enough to confirm what the feeling had been trying to tell her. Enough to establish that the person on the other end of these messages was not a professional contact or a family member or anyone whose connection to her husband had an innocent explanation. Enough to understand that the life she had been living alongside her husband was running parallel to a different life that he had been equally committed to and far more honestly present in. She read enough. And then she did the thing that no one in the management of his official story had written a response plan for. She called. The other woman's phone rang. She saw the number. She did not know whose number it was. It was not a number she had been given, but she answered because the phone that was calling was one she had called and been called from many times before. a number she would have recognized. And the voice on the other end of the line was not the voice she was expecting. What followed was a conversation that neither woman had ever prepared for, and that no protocol in any royal household had ever anticipated needing to manage. Two women, connected by the same man, speaking directly to each other for the first time, without the buffer of management or the protection of official distance or any of the systems that had been constructed specifically to ensure that these two worlds never touched. They were touching now, directly, in real time, and what was said between them in those minutes, the specific words, the specific honesty that the specific impossibility of the situation produced, was more real than anything either of them had probably experienced in the entire context of their connections to Sheikh Hamdan. The other woman did not deny. That much is known. She was not someone who had been operating under the impression that what she and Hamdan had was a secret that needed to be defended against his wife. She had her own understanding of the situation, her own clarity about what the relationship was and what it was not, and what her position in his life actually meant. And in the face of a direct call from the wife, a call that had bypassed every layer of management and arrived at the truth without warning, she was honest in the way that people are honest when the performance has become suddenly and completely pointless. Sheikha heard what she heard. She asked what she needed to ask. And she received answers that confirmed everything the feeling had been telling her, and then went further than the feeling had prepared her for. Not just that the other woman existed, but for how long, how seriously, what it had meant to him, and what it continued to mean. The specific depth of a connection that predated the marriage and had continued throughout it, and was, in every way that mattered emotionally and privately, the real relationship in his life, while the marriage had been the official one. The call ended. Both women sat with what had just happened. Neither of them had a precedent for the moment they had just been part of. Neither of them had a script for what came next. And somewhere in the palace, Sheikh Hamdan was about to discover that the management he had maintained for years, the careful, practiced, institutionally supported separation of his private life from his official one, had been collapsed in a single unexpected call between two women who had both loved him and who had, in the privacy of that phone call, finally been honest with each other in a way that the situation had never previously allowed. What happened after is what you would expect. The palace was informed, the management was activated, the situation was addressed with the specific efficiency that institutions bring to breaches they had not anticipated. But some things, once they have happened, cannot be managed back into the shape they were in before. The call had happened, the honesty had happened, the two worlds had touched, and the marriage, which had been struggling before and which had just been asked to absorb more truth than it had been built to contain, did not survive it. She found the phone. She called the other woman. And nothing about the official story of Sheikh Hamdan was ever quite the same again. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan. The moments that broke through every layer of management. The calls that were never supposed to happen. And the truth that surfaced when two women finally spoke directly to each other.